Good evening and welcome to ET Now Startup Central, India's first and only daily show dedicated to startups, technology and entrepreneurship. I'm Chandra Shrikant coming to you live from India Startup Capital, Bengaluru. And this is a special show that we are going to discuss this evening because this issue has rocked the Indian startup ecosystem. I am of course referring to Binny Bansal's shock exit from Flipkart this week. Now, it's been quite a stormy day at the Flipkart headquarters in Bengaluru. In the morning, we expected the exit of Myntra CEO Anant Narayanan as well as part of this whole issue. But Myntra has come back in the afternoon and said that Anant Narayanan will stay for now. However, there is going to be a larger consolidation exercise where Jabong, the other fashion portal that Myntra acquired a few years back, will be integrated with Myntra fully, and this might lead to some exits. Less than 10% of the workforce in both Myntra and Jabong could be impacted. Now remember, just a few days back they had also altered the reporting structure. So Kalyan Krishnamurthy is the big boss. Anant Narayanan will report to Kalyan Krishnamurthy, whereas PhonePe CEO Sameer Nigam and Kalyan will report to the board directly. We don't know how this is going to work out because Anant Narayanan is not known to have the best of relations with Kalyan. At least that's the sense we got from speaking at people there. But moving away from that to a very important discussion this evening on the show, where we are going to reconstruct the sequence of events and really give you an inside picture on what exactly transpired and what led to Binny Bansal's shock exit. We are relying on an article that appeared in website Founding Fuel last night. It had a pretty detailed and exhaustive sequence of events on what exactly went wrong at Flipkart and what were the crucial lapses in judgment that cost Binny Bansal his job. Now, I want to clarify here that I did reach out to both Walmart as well as Binny Bansal himself to ask them if they want to corroborate, counter the story, but they haven't got back to us. So we will update the story based on their response. But the sequence now is based on a story by Founding Fuel. Now, what exactly happened? So 2016 is when this started. 2016 is also when Binny Bansal became CEO. What we understand is he had an extramarital affair in 2016 that went sour. Subsequently, there was some allegation of extortion and blackmail. But Binny Bansal decided to tackle this issue on his own by hiring a security firm. He thought it wasn't important to keep the company posted. Now, what happened in 2018? Fast forward to 2018. In July 2018, just as Walmart was preparing to wrap up the due diligence and of course announce the acquisition, a mail went out from this person, this complainant, directly to Walmart's global CEO Doug McMillon, detailing the events in 2016. Now, Walmart engaged legal firm Gibson Dunn to conduct a thorough investigation. Now, Walmart did not find any evidence of sexual assault, so that was completely ruled out. But they did find a very serious lapse on behalf of Binny Bansal. Now, what was that lapse? Now, what they uncovered during the course of this investigation is that Binny Bansal hired a security firm in 2016. A person from the security firm tried to physically harm the lady in 2016. She then complained to Binny about this. And what Binny did then, he hired yet another security firm, and the second security firm tried to pay her off. We don't know if, that was the end of the matter, if she accepted the payoff. But the missing part of the puzzle, there are really three missing pieces. One, why did she write directly to Walmart's global CEO in July? The second piece, of course, being that, what exactly happened, what was the motivation? And the third, we also understand that Sachin Bansal was marked on this mail that went out to Doug McMillon, and he was among a handful of people who actually knew about this issue. So this is what happened. And for Walmart, I think the biggest disappointment was the fact that Binny Bansal did not disclose this when the negotiations were on. There was no disclosure on his part, and that is something that did not go down well with them, because as an SEC listed company, they have very high standards when it comes to disclosures, ethical conduct of senior executives. Now, what lessons does this hold for other entrepreneurs? We have two special guests joining us on Startup Central, Haresh Chawla as well as Ganesh, two investors who've worked very closely with entrepreneurs over the years. Haresh, I want to start with you. Hypothetically, if Walmart wasn't an investor in Flipkart, if that if they did not buy out that 77%, would we have seen the story coming out at all? Because Binny Bansal did not think it was important to inform his company in 2016. Though he was a CEO, he decided to engage two security firms, and the end outcome didn't really come out well. What do you think would have happened if Walmart wasn't in the picture?
Is that directed to me? Chandra?
Yes, Harish.
I can't. Hello? Yeah. No, so I guess, yeah, things would have been different. I mean, really speaking, I think when you get a new owner in the form of Walmart, they are a pretty low-key corporation, have very high standards of corporate governance, and the company here would have to comply to those. So in a sense, there would have been a material difference. I think the kind of disclosure or the kind of standards it holds its CEOs to, Walmart would have a very different way of operating than would venture capitalist investors or financial investors, who also have very different stakes in the game as well. Today, Walmart has almost 80% of the company, and therefore it's fully responsible for all the actions, and it's responsible as a publicly listed company in the US with millions of shareholders and a long corporate heritage as well. So when you put all this together, yes, of course, had Walmart not been in the picture, the situation would have been materially different. I mean, there's no question about that.
I don't want her. Right. Ganesh, let me come to you. When you view all this, we've sort of listed out a sequence of events based on what Founding Fuel has reported. How do you think an entrepreneur could have handled this? Because at the end of the day, many people might say, this was a private affair that went wrong. Why should the company even be involved? Was the action too harsh? Was it even warranted? What would you say to that as a serial entrepreneur yourself and an investor?
Yeah, so Chandra, I have also read the article that you referred to that talked about what you just described as the sequence in big detail. Okay, specifics of the case, how much of that article is actually factually correct, how much are the more facts or explanations, it really needs to come out. But clearly this has shown the mirror for startups, founders, entrepreneurs, as well as board members very starkly and suddenly. So my takeaway or learning, both for myself as an entrepreneur, as well as investors, and for the startup ecosystem, point number one, startups, when they become certain size or scale, either in terms of number of transactions, revenue, money raised, or the number of employees, they can no longer hide behind or take refuge in the fact that they are a startup. Therefore, compliance, governance, policies, procedures will be lax. We cannot take that. Okay, right? So I think while it is true for a young startup in the first year, 2 years, it is trying to get product market fit, it's trying to figure out whether it will survive or not. While all that is true, beyond a certain scale in any of these parameters, the level of governance, like what Haresh mentioned in terms of Walmart has got, the level of governance has to be of a completely different standard, like an established mature company, because the kind of things at stake, the number of employees, the number of customers, the number of vendors, the number of suppliers, the amount of data that you have on millions of customers, their privacy and the data breach, all of this is as big an impact as a listed company in India or abroad. So I think we need to bring that. I think that is one big learning here. So whether it's a founder, and I don't know the case, it's not referring specifically to this founder or this particular case, the startup entrepreneurs and even the startup board has to start treating like a large listed company, put policies and frameworks in place so that these kind of things is avoided. Anything goes wrong, the impact is not a startup impact of companies, large companies like Paytm, like Big Basket, like Flipkart, they are huge. So we need to hold startup beyond a particular level to a different standard, and
Right.
all of us
Right.
need to
Right.
put that in
Ganesh.
place.
Right. Right. Harish, just want to understand in terms of the larger import that this has. I mean, 2016 is not a year when you would have defined Flipkart as a startup by any measure. I mean, it was big enough then. And what's more, Binny Bansal had just been elevated to the level of CEO in January 2016. So what excuses, does Binny Bansal of Flipkart really have? Considering what the article has mentioned, and what could an entrepreneur do if he or she finds himself in a similar situation in the future? Because how many investors are going to encourage them to perhaps go to the police or be more transparent? I mean, what would one do in the entrepreneur's shoes in such a situation? Because it is a very tricky situation. Perhaps at that point of time, he felt that it wasn't necessary to notify the company. It is a private matter. He couldn't have foreseen Walmart doing an investigation in 2018. So, what lessons does this hold for entrepreneurs?
Okay, so as I said, I won't comment specifically on what has happened at Flipkart. Let's go beyond that. I think the bigger challenge here is that there is a complete absence of role models for Indian young entrepreneurs right now. I think that the challenge really is that really music business needs rock stars, not startup business, and we are making rock stars out of people very early in their lives. Power, adulation, money, all three are combining into a completely attitudinal change, and these are all people who are all from middle class. Everybody in the startup system is really middle class people who suddenly have come under the public glare, and that leads to a different kind of mentality. I mean, would you have a role model in Travis Kalanick, or would you see a role model in Satya Nadella or Sundar Pichai, right? I think that's the challenge, and we have an old generation of Indian entrepreneurs as well. If you look at Sanjeev Bikhchandani or Ashish Hemrajani or Deep Kalra, you have these people who've matured and seen, and you can see the distinct difference in the way they conduct themselves versus the younger entrepreneurs that we're seeing. So I think that's the core gap here, and that itself leads to or manifests itself in the kind of behavior and kind of decisions and the kind of calls these people are taking. So I think that this is a bigger call, that I think this is a signal to a lot of entrepreneurs here, who are much younger, that do not take it to your head. Make sure that you end up getting coached or mentored and learn how to evolve as an individual, because that's the challenge. At a very young age, they are being forced to act much beyond the years, and they are in public glare. So therefore, the kind of decisions you need to take, the kind of help you need to take, of course they all scoff at grey hair of people like me and Ganesh probably as well. And the reality, yes, we are all older and have seen more cycles in business, and probably we don't understand some of the businesses and technologies they're building. But personal conduct, personal values and ethics, I think those are things that are going to be should be deep discussions now in the startup ecosystem. That taking money or raising money is about taking responsibility on yourself. You're taking responsibility for investors' money. You're taking responsibility for hiring people, and you're taking responsibility for building an organization. And Flipkart is a classical case. 3 transitions in 2 years. I mean, look at the situation right now. They had a transition from the founders to a professional manager, and then they've had an ownership transition. Of course, there will be cracks in the system that will develop. I mean, and they are developing now. I think Walmart will probably have to face even more challenges as it goes along and tries to grapple with running this large enterprise that has come through a series of management transitions. And it will be an example for everybody to see. It will be a case study for a lot of other Indian startup companies. And probably this lesson is going to a lot of young people's head, that they need to reach out to their board more often, talk to mentors more often, and understand. I mean, I don't know the specifics in this case, but things could have been different had the people involved reached out to a more senior person on their board and asked them, how do I deal with this situation? Answers would have emerged that would have been very different.
Right. But Haresh, interestingly, Binny doesn't even fit the textbook definition of a very splashy, over the top, arrogant kind of entrepreneur. In fact, of the two Bansals, he's always been seen as the less abrasive one, the shy one, the humble one. So I really don't know what to, if I would classify him as a rock star founder or someone who carried that image with him in that
as
sense.
I said, I'm not taking
but
his
my larger
specific
point
case.
here, Ganesh,
Chandra, don't get me wrong, I'm not taking his specific case, but I'm saying...
Right.
No, I'm not taking his specific case.
Right.
I'm saying our young Indian startup rock stars actually reaching out and finding role models and figuring out how to grapple with early success, early responsibility, and and trying to get mature much ahead of the years. I'm not saying that I'm not discussing different personality types here. I'm discussing, do they have the mechanism? Are they open to it? Do they reach out to the investors? Do they reach out to a board? Do they even construct a board? I mean, those are the things that we need to learn from.
Absolutely. And Ganesh, I want to take you up on that. Do founders actually reach out to investors, and are investors, board members really interested in these discussions? Because, at least from a headline perspective, what really makes headlines are funding rounds, and, scale, and who's going to be the next unicorn. But are there deep discussions around culture? Because, we have seen examples of this happening over the years. You saw a Rahul Yadav, you saw some issues with Snapdeal, you saw a Flipkart, you saw a rather, ambiguous episode that happened with Vijay Shekhar Sharma and their chief of communications. So do founders really have interest, and more importantly, are investors looking at these issues, or, do they just ask them about targets and revenues and profit and other such things?
Yeah, no, that's a valid question. So, firstly, I don't think Binny Bansal anyway is behaved in a way is a rock star or he's flashy or any of that. He has been pretty mature, and I would disagree with Haresh here that most of the even young founders, most of them are behaving in a mature manner. But having said that, the broader question is investors.
No, Haresh himself has clarified that he wasn't referring to one person.
Yeah. No, even I'm saying, even if you take even outside,
outside
Haresh
this person, himself has clarified that he wasn't referring to any one individual.
Yeah, correct. I understand that. I'm saying even as a category, I don't see that as the challenge. The bigger challenge is for all of us, not just the founder or entrepreneur, even for investors. Investors want next round so that they mark to market their investment. We are chasing funding, valuation, scale, metrics, how to raise more money, how to show next one, how to become unicorn. I mean, the big and the media also hypes it up completely. The fastest unicorn, fastest company to reach unicorn status in less than 2 years is revered and glamorized and this. Now, what is happening in all of that, and I'm all part of the same system, including myself, is we are chasing the wrong metrics. Which startup board consists of founders and investors. It doesn't consist of independent directors. There is no requirement for independent director. There is nothing that says that startup, I'm not saying it should happen in the first year. When they reach a certain size and scale on any of the parameters that we know, should we not insist that there needs to be at least one independent director? There needs to be an ombudsman for the company, because so much of employees, vendors, partners, investors, money is at stake. Customers' convenience is at stake. There needs to be an ombudsman. There needs to be independent director. We do all these things only for regulated financial entities, or we do it for listed entities. Now, tell me, a large startup like a Flipkart or a Paytm or a Big Basket is large enough to be treated from governance perspective and requirement perspective differently. To your question, no. Founders are not the problem here. It is the board, the investors who are chasing certain numbers and metrics, where the board consists only of founders and financial investors whose job is to pump up the valuation. And I'm not saying it in a negative sense. Where is the governance? Governance will come only if you insist that the board must have 2 independent directors or 1 independent director. The company needs to have an ombudsman. It needs to have a certain way to resolve conflicts. If the resolution is going to be at the board, where the founder who has got his interest and the investor who is looking at next mark-to-market valuation for the next round, then where is the governance going to really come from? We need to take this a lot more seriously. I think that is what this has shown. All of this, right? I'm not talking about individual. And we need to insist that we need to have a code of conduct, a certain governance for larger startups, which is equivalent to a company listed in NASDAQ or in US exchange. That is when it will get addressed. Otherwise, the founder, poor guy, don't hold the founder responsible.
Right, Ganesh.
Okay.
Right. Right. Haresh, last, I want to give the last word to you. And if you can sort of tell me if you agree with Ganesh there that, you cannot blame the founder. Always, the onus is also on the investor and the board. And my second and larger question, a lot of people see this as some sort of, an insidious move by Walmart, because they anyway didn't want Binny in the long run. They were always betting on Kalyan. He's been the operations guy. So it's being shown as an example that, this is what will happen if you decide to sell out to a large investor or a large company and don't even dream of a situation where a founder is going to be in the picture. Once you've been taken over, that would really be fool's paradise. It's a very utopian scenario. There's no way that marriage can happen. Your quick response to both these questions. Do you think startup founders will now be more wary of these mega deals, mega exits? And, should they just leave early on rather than stay back?
No. I think I disagree with this completely and utterly. There are multiple examples of companies all over the world acquiring businesses and then finding the best people to run it. So if the best person to run it is the founder, they will vote for the founder. You don't spend $20 billion and worry about small things that, I need to play this game and get this CEO out. You don't do these things. You want the best person to run the company at that moment and find the best role and find the best allocation of roles to the key team members. So it's not even about one person. Remember, the rockstar comment actually is not coming from anything else. Music is about individual brilliance, but running a business is not about individual brilliance. It's about setting a culture, it's about getting a way of working going. So I think governance comes after culture setting. That's the challenge for Indian startups and young entrepreneurs here. Are they even thinking about how they're setting up culture in the organizations? And therefore, if it's not, and I don't agree at all, Walmart will take the best decision in the kind of money they've paid, and any company would, to find the best men for the job and the best allocation of roles for the top team. It's not one person at all in any company. So to believe that some company has decided to get rid of a CEO, I think this is a very silly idea and path to go down. Not at all. If you're sitting on Walmart's side of the table, you would want Flipkart, such a big investment in a really an alien market and such a visible investment with such a high amount of commitment and continuing losses. I think they'll be down billions of dollars more, both Amazon and Walmart, before they see light of at the end of the tunnel in India. And therefore, they won't do this move just because of some insidious plan they had in their minds. I mean, that's my view. I don't think that's true at all.
Right. On that note, Haresh and Ganesh, thank you so much for giving us all that rich perspective on how this has played out, the larger lessons that this has for the startup ecosystem. Clearly, responsibility to be shared not just by founders, by board, by investors. But all in all, it's quite a sad ending for both Bansals. I mean, Sachin Bansal, you could somewhat argue, got a more gracious exit. He exited as soon as the deal was sealed. But for Binny, it's not been the same story. I'm sure this is not the exit he would have hoped for, even if he was leaving a few months down the line. But clearly, this episode has rich lessons for the startup ecosystem. And hopefully, we will see culture and governance taking equal importance just as fundraising and scale does. On that note, completely out of time, thanks so much for watching this special show and stay tuned to ET Now for more news and updates.